Welcome to Panels to Chords, where we talk about the music we listen to while reading comics. I'm Ben Howard.
And I'm Maddi Butler.
And we are here talking today about for a change, not a print comic, not a DC, a Marvel, or an Image comic. We're talking about a web comic. One, though, that's technically getting a print release. So
soon to be a print comic published by First Second, I believe.
Yeah, of course. Like, First Second's all about those, mass appeal graphic novels, which makes them so great, I say.
Yeah.
The one we're talking about is called On a Sunbeam by the young superstar artist right now, Tillie Walden.
This comic was so good.
It was. I've never read anything by Tillie Walden. The only time I heard about Tillie Walden, unfortunately, first was when I think, I won't name him by name, but some older, near middle age indie artist decided to do some BS review of her book that was condescending and mocking it for being YA or daddy issues. I'm but we won't talk about that because that's not negativity. I loved it. And then after reading On a Sunbeam, I went and read Tillie Walden's book that she's big on now, Spinning.
Yeah, I saw that and I saw it in a bookstore and I was just like, I need to read this eventually. So I'm looking forward to maybe reading that one next. But.
Yeah. I found it there's actually copies at just about every library in my area right now, in my county, and it's so good. On the Sunbeam is just... So, On the Sunbeam is a sci-fi young adult, I would say. Although
it does get a little heavy toward the end, but...
It does. Although one thing I've kind of noticed that I love young adult now, and this was not even a thing when I was reading stuff for teens, is that and now I notice is that, man, all of them have dirty mouths, these characters.
Yeah, a little bit.
I guess it's just shocking because I grew up with stuff that was the most hardcore that got were saying maybe damn once or twice.
Yeah, I grew up with a swear jar, so I just didn't really do it.
Right.
Until I left my house, but...
Yeah, well, I grew up in, Southern Christian world, so, again, the whole swear thing. But anyway, On a Sunbeam is, without a doubt, one of the most unique sci-fi comic reads I've read in a long time.
The art, and I loved the colors. And I loved that she didn't really explain things all the time either. It was just these are spaceships, they're shaped like fish. And then it's just that's awesome. I don't need an explanation for that because it just looks cool.
Well, yeah, that's, I think, the worst thing you can do for any fictional setting, even if you're doing sci-fi, which is I guess supposed to be scientifically knowledge, is over-explaining things. Mm-hmm. And there's no explanation for why all the ships in this world are pretty much koi fish. It's it looks cool. Yeah. Deal with it.
And I think it made the comic seem very I'd say grand, which definitely influenced my music picks. Some of the landscapes in them were just so stunning.
I think so too, because so what I found interesting was that at least 3 out of my 5 picks kind of aligned a little bit to the more softer side.
They did. I noticed that.
Yeah, and usually I'm the guy.
For you.
I know. I'm growing, I guess, because I usually am the one who goes with the harder, noisier stuff. But then I started bringing up bands of all people, Bjork.
Yeah.
Although I will actually have to show you some time, there are a lot of like heavy metal bands that have covered Bjork.
Sure.
And what I found interesting was that a lot of them are black metal bands, which is like, what? And I mean, what exactly is the genre of Satan worshippers? Like literal Satan worshippers covering Army of Me and pagan poetry. I don't know, but it sounds cool. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I did, of course, because I may somehow sneak in, some, at least 2 songs by the same heavy metal band, but...
Did we really record a podcast if you didn't include heavy metal?
That is true.
Did we really record a podcast if I don't get sentimental about lyrics at least once?
But I think I went with the same thing where it was like very grand feeling, especially the emotional side of it, because this is something that I love about Tillie Walden's work, is that I think what I love about her art so much is the emotion to it. Like, it's feelings, and I'm all about the feelings.
There's so many moments in that comic that are just like so like intimate and tender, but I was just like, I don't know, the way that I picked my songs were largely thinking of ones that, like I said, were kind of grand and cinematic, and then the other ones spoke more to like the tender, emotional side of it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely thinking about.
Definitely. I'll start with my first pick, just to begin with. My first pick for this, and it came automatically because I was looking for something that, for me, it's not exactly something that fits into the narrative. It's just how I felt initially about Tillie Walden's art. And I describe how her art is just very, like, just speaks emotions. You know, you can denote all these things that I think people have noted about it, is that it's colorful, it's very, I would say, takes advantage of, at least for me, the idea of like silent panels that just show you what's going on and don't try to, like, you feel the emotions without some like dumb like over explanation feel like thought bubbles. I kind of ranted about this on Twitter a little bit, but I recently read a Supergirl Rebirth, the first volume, because I picked it up from my library, and I hated how there were lines of dialogue and that where the characters described how they are feeling. And I'm just like, are you really feeling it? If you need to tell me, I should be able to know it by your face. And being able to pick up on those emotional feelings just through body language and facial expression alone is way more profound than words can put to it. Because honestly, at least for me, emotions are way more profound than you can describe a word in it.
Yeah, it takes away from it when you have to, like, I mean, when you're telling and not showing.
Exactly.
Tell a little bit, but I don't need to read it over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, Tillie Walden is just an expert at capturing those emotions through everything. Characters' facial expressions, their body language, through the use of color. Yeah. Like, you could tell so much about what you were supposed to feel from color alone on the page. And for that, I had to go with Bjork's Yoga. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but I remember it because it's... I first got into Bjork because I saw her exhibit in New York's MoMA a few years ago. And I remember Yoga was one where it's like, she has the craziest music videos, which is part of why I now love Bjork. Like, she makes a music video that you remember, not one that's like kind of just dull. But it's like she's traversing these mountains, and then at some point she opens up her shirt to reveal the mountainscape within her chest. And it's just like layers and layers upon like her being part of, I guess, like nature. Now, with a lot of, and this is true with a lot of Bjork, sometimes I'm not exactly sure what the emotion, like the real story of the song is, because she writes in a very kind of poetic way, where it's not very concrete. It's more like trying to just make, it's trying to speak something much more emotional and profound than what usual, like, I guess you could say, like, in the beginning, blah something narration could tell you. But one thing I got from Bjork's yoga was just the idea of, I think for me it was the line in the song, emotional landscape. And I think that kind of is how I connect that song to On a Sunbeam, because so much of the art is about literally using every visual to express some kind of emotion, I would say.
Yeah.
And that might be...
The end.
Yeah, that might be redundant on my part, but that's how I came to associate with it. And, like, I think it just, for me, it just expresses that song, these big emotions that you get from reading On a Sunbeam. I couldn't exactly say that it connects to a certain scene, or even has like maybe thematic connection to it. But when I listened to yoga, every single visual that I saw from On a Sunbeam that really stuck to me, from like the beginning pages where the main character, what's her name? Mia. Goes into, she's like flies into the sunbeam that she becomes a part of, to her when she's in high school, and she first tries to fly one of those koi fishes, and it ends badly, to just everything, like all the scenes of them just traverse, she and her friends exploring an area.
I think one of my picks is very similar. I put it fourth in my playlist because I feel like it just kind of connects with like the middle part where there's a lot of flashbacks, but I felt the same way. It was more that it connected with, like, I guess the art and the colors and the way that those are used in the story more than anything, because it just evokes an emotion. That was certainly on my mind when I was picking songs.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's unavoidable. And again, I feel like I'm being redundant in what I'm saying, but Tillie, we've discussed it before, but usually the thing that I capture onto a song first and foremost isn't necessarily the story, it's the feeling of the song. And I think that I think that's the same thing you get with Walden. And we can talk all day about how much it's important to be like technically sound in art or music or writing. But I think first and foremost, at least for me, as always, as a reader and listener, the first thing that art needs to do for me is capture me, like hook me in the heart first.
Yeah, and actually, so my first pick is a song called Moonlight Baby by The Dig. And I swear, a lot of my songs are space themed, and that was, not totally intentional. But I think I pulled a leaf out of your book, and I was definitely thinking more about like the feeling that it captured, because like the lyrics are very sweet, and they kind of talk about like a love that has been lost a little bit, and like the singer is kind of saying like, yeah, but it was like always you, like I still love you. And I think I mean, while those are appropriate for the story, it also reminded me of just kind of like a nostalgic, like, it had a nostalgic feeling to it, which I think we see a lot, especially as we're catching up with Mia and like her doing like her flashbacks and like understanding like what her past is, and then like sort of waiting to see where that's going to collide with where the story is going in the future.
Right.
So that's why I ended up picking that song.
Right. So for those of the readers who don't know what we're talking about, what Maddi is referencing to is one of the things that the story. I guess we should mention the story a little bit. I know we just went in for songs.
I just like refreshed my memory today. But the story is about this girl named Mia who was kind of middling in high school, and then afterwards decides to join a crew of restorers. So they have a spaceship, and then they just kind of fly from planet to planet, taking on jobs and fixing. Well, I guess it's never really clear like where they're flying to, but basically they restore buildings and make them habitable again. And she had a girlfriend in high school, and that kind of turned into like a love lost. I don't want to completely spoil the story or anything, but it does play heavily into how the story resolves. So
yeah, and honestly, I think the fact that the song choices we have are a little vague on our understanding of the story is based on the vagueness of the story alone. Like, it's clearly sci-fi because it's them traversing this, like, koi fish spaceship to, like, these, like, random... You know what actually reminded me of, though? There was that one Gundam series where, like, where, like, planet Earth was split, like, in order to... Excuse me, I can't remember which exactly Gundam series it was, but at some point it was a sci-fi future where, in order to prevent war... basically nations decided to go and live in their own like separate worlds, so in order to be far away enough from each other so that like the nations couldn't like go to war with each other. So each nation kind of like and I'm just going on vague memories of my childhood because I obsessed over this cartoon during like the height of tsunami. But the countries and nations of like old Earth decide to colonize on separate planets or planetariums in order to prevent world war. That way, they're so far apart from each other, they can't go to war with each other. And on a Sunbeam, it's not clear if there's like any one world that anyone really inhabits.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not even worlds, it's these like floating buildings just out on...
Super tiny planet, it seems like.
Yeah.
Although I think for me that was one of the strengths of it, because like it's so vague that it requires a lot of suspension of disbelief that like I think you're naturally inclined to just suspend your disbelief for it, and then it just like focuses so much on the emotional aspect that I didn't really personally need for there to be a ton of detail. I was just like, okay, it's cool as anything, and I like the emotional arc that's happening.
Yeah, and maybe that influenced our song choices a little bit.
Oh,
like,
for me it definitely did.
Like with Moonlight Baby and with you and Moonlight Baby and me and Yoga, maybe it's made sense then that the songs that we chose that most represent how we felt emotionally about the song are in a way narratively vague, but emotionally they're profound.
Yeah.
Like, you might not get what the story is behind these songs, but you feel it, man. And you feel it, and your heart is pumping. And like I said, I think that's the first thing that any piece of art should do in the first place, is hit you in those emotional drum beats, first and foremost, before you develop a deeper understanding of the context of the art.
Yeah, and your second song really, emphasized that for me.
Talk
about it.
Okay, yeah. So my second song choice was Tonight by the Smashing Pumpkins. I know we're all a little fuzzy about them right now because, Billy Corgan's right now the, biggest asshole. One of the biggest assholes in the world. Like, you don't go on InfoWars purposefully to, fully agree with, everything Alex Jones says without being a full-blown asshole at that point. But for me, Tonight, and honestly, the entire song list of Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness will always be one of the greatest albums ever. Because, well, one, it has a completely sci-fi feel to it. I always imagined when I was listening to that album that it was, the soundtrack to the greatest, sci-fi epic never written. But kind of like you said, Maddi, that it was capturing an emotional feel to it, or the emotion was much more important. Tonight, there is a little bit more of a deeper meaning to it. Billy Corgan has always said that it's kind of like a song about letting go of all of the guilt and kind of fear and just all the negativity that shaped you or even held you back, and really just embracing a moment in time where you're happiest. And for me, with Tonight, that came with a particular scene from on Sunbeam, and that's when Mia and her girlfriend are on the school vacation, and they go into these caverns, and Mia and her girlfriend are just walking around the place, exploring it. And this is kind of the height of their relationship, where they're very much in love and freely expressing that. And to me, Tonight's perfectly synced into that. I mean, the lyrics of Tonight really speak to that. Tonight will crucify the insincere. We'll make things right. We'll feel it all tonight. That's what I've always felt like that song's about, is that special night that really truly just defines happiness despite everything else that might be happening to you or will unfortunately happen to you in the future. At least you that have this moment to carry you on. And I think for Mia, that's true too. This is not just a flashback that lasts a few pages. This is a flashback that gets its own entire chapter.
Yeah.
In the webcomic. And there's so much focus on it that, to me, it's the one where I imagine that in Mia's head is the most profound, the most happiest memory she has of her time with her girlfriend. There's no words also in this chapter. None. No dialogue whatsoever. And I think that just makes it much more profound, because it's a memory you don't need memories to define. But if it were to play out, in my mind, it has to be Tonight by Smashing Pumpkins.
It's funny because I think we really synced up on this one, because my one of my other choices is Planet Hunter by Wolf Alice, who is a super young band. And again, I didn't intentionally pick like space themed songs, although this one like I kind of like leaned into it. But the theme of this song, I don't know, it's always just kind of like a mellow song, which is like, that makes it like most of what I listen to regardless. But it's kind of got an edge to it, and like to me, it sort of evokes like searching for something. I don't really know what, but I think the songwriter said that it's kind of about like when you don't ever want a night to end. And I was thinking about it like during the middle of the series when they're at the school dance and they're just like so happy until like I think at that point everything kind of starts to come crashing down around them a little bit. But it's just such a high followed by a number of like personal lows for all of the characters. So that was influential in my pick there.
Right. Was that the I think that was like a few chapters before we got to like the final part, or was it during like the final chapters where they're on the planet
I think it was toward the middle, because then you find out a little bit more of like Grace's background at that point, I think. At least I'm remembering it toward the middle, but it was...
All right. So Mia's girlfriend's name, listeners, is Grace, and she's from this other planet, but she had to kind of... Actually, I thought this was shocking, go on a hunger strike in order to get her family to allow her to go to this, like, school, which I think...
Yeah, it's a boarding school.
Grace, I've done a lot of crazy things during, my teenage years to get my parents to do something, but I never starved for myself.
No, I'm never over a boarding school, but I guess whatever floats your boat.
Well, do you think... I think this was about... Correct me if I'm wrong, but did you get the feeling that Grace was mentally ill somehow?
Yeah, I think... Yeah, she didn't read to me as neurotypical, so I don't know. I don't know if it was like nothing was like explicitly stated, but that was just my read on the character.
Right. I won't go into controversy though, but with your song choice, do you think there was anything else that, or was it just again like? You were able to associate this one specific song with a specific moment within the story?
I think it was definitely an example of like me associating the song very strongly with the moment. It's kind of on my like I have playlists for different like moods or parts of the day or whatever, and it's on my like evening playlist, which is kind of like a little more low key, but not necessarily unemotional or anything, just and it was kind of like the dance was like happy, but then there was the moment where it was no longer happy, and it got kind of subdued after that, and I think this song kind of captures that for me at least.
Cool. Yeah. I have my third song choice also yet again is an instance where, for me, the song syncs up with the scene. In this case, this is the one of the next to last chapters of the book when Mia and her team arrive on Grace's home planet in order for her to like go and like visit Grace. And that would be I might get this confused a little bit. Stonewall, Stone Fence by Gregory and the Hawk. This one, when I first learned about this song from another webcomic, actually. that referenced it in one of the chapters. And the webcomic is a little different from on the Sunbeam. It's more of a horror comic. It's called Weaker Sides, although I would totally recommend it because it's crazy and weird and awesome. But when I first listened to Gregor and Hawk, for me, at first I thought, oh, like typical kind of like, indie folk song, about like, oh, how big nature is, how old the mountain is, yada yada. But then after the typical like kind of like acoustic guitar intro, you then suddenly get somewhere in the middle of the song that's kind of like surprise, really kind of sharp, like electro music to it that's really sharp, kind of like really kind of just sounds like scratching noise in your ear at first. And that was a surprise to me. Like, okay, I admit I did not see that coming. And then there's a little bit of like, drum and electric guitar to it, which I know I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to the song, but added an extra kind of like crazy layer to it. But in the case of Stonewall Stone Fence, the one I associated that song with was the scene when Mia and her friends first arrive on Grace's planet, and they have no idea where Grace and her, family are, because they've all like their world's crumbling down, so they decide to like live in like weird passageways. So they're trying to look for her that way. And for me, in those scenes in which they're just traveling around, and you get these incredible like establishing shots of the planet, just showing you every freaking detail that Tillie Walden could think of and wanted to implement it into her comic. You see it, you feel it. And for me, since Stonewall Stone Fence is about, obsessing over just this great landscape of this old nature scene, it fit perfectly.
Yeah.
It felt Lord of the Rings at times, those things, actually.
I think Tillie Walden is really good at creating a sense of scale. Like, some of the backgrounds and like the landscapes in the comic just felt so enormous.
Yeah, they did. And at least for me, I'm going to have to go with my pick again for that song, just with the grand scale that it captured. Kind of like what Yoga captured, but while Yoga is for like the comic as a whole, Stonewall Stone Fence is specifically for that scene. And honestly, that scene, I would say, is the most like just artistically impressive of the webcomic.
Yeah, my third pick is not based on a scene, but based on like kind of the comic as a whole. But this one is Interspace by Starcadian, which Starcadian does like, and does it well, but a lot of like electronic music that's just very like rich and grand and cinematic, and so I think that's why this one really like spoke to me. Again, the lyrics are appropriate because I can't not think of the lyrics when I am choosing a song.
Right.
But it's kind of about like a relationship that is like troubled but still based very heavily on strong emotions, like and it's very like, despite being as cinematic and like just like rich as it is, it's quite intimate as well. Um, so it kind of sounds like, if you read the lyrics, it reads kind of like he's speaking directly to another person.
Right.
But yeah, it's a song that I have liked for quite some time now. So I'm glad to be able to relate it to a comic finally. But
Right. Well, I think that in a way, so far, each of our picks are still about those intimate moments, which makes sense because the whole like comic, you said, like, uses a sci-fi setting, but it's not about the world; it's about the intimate emotions. In a way, the sci-fi elements are just there to like make it more profound feeling. But yeah, I have to agree with that. Like, I listened to that song a little bit more, and so again, this is just me because I'm an ADD freak, but I didn't pick up on first the lyrical content, but I still got a hint of the like intimate feeling from it. Although I would say that so far, you can't say any of our song choices aren't intimate on some level.
I'd agree with that.
And I think that this is what has been fun for me picking song choices about for on a Sunbeam, is that you didn't need any like kind of like strong lyrical base to make a choice. Although you always being, the super smart reader into lyrics were able to do that. But just as long as you got the feeling from the song that is about like intimacy, you were able to find it. And of course, your third pick is a little more on the nose with that, but no less just great about that.
Yeah, so would you like to talk about your metal pick?
Because I always have to have
Because we have to
metal.
have one, at least one.
At least one, or else it's like I'm not functioning normally, right? I always have to have
really worried if you didn't pick.
Right. Well, the good thing is this is actually both of these picks are from the same band, and well, Maddi, you're in for a world of annoyance because they happen to be my favorite band ever. So at some point, if I start segueing into just how awesome Septicflesh is, just give a signal or something and I'll shut my stupid mouth. Anyways, so yes. So anyone who has listened to our show before knows that I somehow, no matter what, no matter the type of story we read, no matter the the content or like the aesthetic of it, I will somehow find a heavy metal song that just vaguely, just barely fits into the comics somehow. Whether it be like classic, like speed metal, like I did for Mockingbird with Girls' School, or like crazy Japanese, like noise rock when I had Melt Banana and Kim and Kim, or when I had Melt Banana and like our yet to be released episode on Shade the Changey Girl. That's not my bad. Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, one of these days I'm gonna give you a challenge and do like a Disney comic or something, and you're gonna have to find a metal song. But like, I really think your superpower is just finding a metal song for any occasion. So maybe I won't do that.
We could do an entire episode alone just on how I have this superpower, I think.
I think we could, and I will just sit back and watch because I know nothing about metal.
Anyways, so yes, the next two songs I picked were from a heavy metal band, and again, they're my favorite band in the world, so I might geek out a little bit. In the case, Septicflesh, and Septicflesh has actually a lot of sci-fi theme songs, so it makes it easy to find a song of theirs for a sci-fi story. Not so much for On a Sunbeam, I will say, because while Septicflesh is a little more dark, edgy, and masculine feeling, On a Sunbeam is very like colorful and feminine. So the song choices I went for Septicflesh have nothing really to do with their modern incarnation, where they're a lot more hardcore, but their early 90s work, just their 90s work in general, where they were a little bit more on the mellow side. Like, while their like music was like out there for the common listener, it wouldn't necessarily scare the bejesus out of you. I don't know if you like listen to the songs like fully.
I did, yes.
You did?
I did, yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much. I don't know if I expanded your mind or just scared the hell out of you. I never know.
Maybe a little bit of both. But okay.
At least you had the like clean vocals in there, which is not regular with my stuff. But the ones I decided to pick, I think have to do with... Okay, so they're not going to connect maybe emotionally with the emotional content of On a Sunbeam, which is, about lost love and then rekindling that lost love. But both songs are about just how fucking awesome space exploration is. The first of these is literally called Telescope. It's literally called Telescope.
Yeah, we did get a little on the nose with our song names this time.
Is that a nice way of saying a little nerdy?
Maybe, but that's okay.
Yeah, but at least I didn't pick the song from that album that's literally just titled Science.
I mean, I picked a song called Planet Hunter, and the sport that they play is based on hunting small planets.
That's true.
Tiny spaceships, so I don't have any room to talk right now.
That's true. But Telescope is, song-wise, it's just about how they found all this awesome stuff in space through looking through a telescope. So, like, if you're a space nerd or, like, an astronomy nerd, go listen to a Telescope. You will, like, just love it. Because they, like, even get the right terminology for all the, like, space stuff that they sing about in that song. You might not understand part of the lyrics because part of the lyrics are in this raspy kind of metal voice. But yeah, for a Telescope, I just went with it because as much as we talked about like the very emotional scenes in On a Sunbeam, it also has a lot of scenes that are very spacey and feel really cool. Like, say if you're like a fan of Star Wars or Star Trek and you love those scenes where it just shows, the ships just kind of like traversing space. Telescope is about that and how cool it is. Except it's more about how cool you're witnessing it through a telescope. And it speaks to just experiencing, witnessing and experiencing just the fastness of space, which on level all the characters in On a Sunbeam do that. I mean, like, so many of the scenes Tillie Walden draws that have to do with space, she draws them perfectly. And while on one hand it's more to, again, capture that fastness of the emotions, another hand it's just cool to look at, like, ooh, look, space. So I feel like Telescope was really about that. And again, this is me. I can't find anything more profound to say about my song choice.
That's okay. Mine's not going to be super profound either for the next two.
All right, so you want to tell us about your fourth choice?
Yeah, my fourth choice is Tidal, like Tidal, by this artist called Shook. He is I think he's a Korean and Dutch artist. I think. I could be wrong. But he does mostly like electronic music that is on the whole, quite mellow. It's pretty influenced by like 70s music. So some of it's like, and some of it's like a little jazzy. But this one was actually on a playlist that I have for Final Fantasy X, because obviously as soon as I listened to it, I was like, oh, Titus. But the thing that I really like about it is that it's all instrumental too. Well, most of his stuff is instrumental, but this one is instrumental. But it's just, it kind of tells a story even through the music. I think it's loose, very open to interpretation. It starts out pretty calm and then kind of hits like a, I don't know, like a climax in the middle, and it's just like, it's a very beautiful song. I don't have a ton to say about it, but for me it just really like picked up the emotion, or like matched it, as I would say, as I was reading, which is why I picked it.
Right. Well, again, I think that's a lot of our song choices right now.
Yeah.
But just because, like, on Sunbeam expertly just goes for those emotions.
Yeah, it's so emotional. I picked a song without words. Ever.
Okay, so for my fifth pick, and again, this is another Septicflesh song. The difference between this one is that while Telescope came from an album in the band's career that was, I would say, the most mainstream they ever got, because some of it sounds a little new metal-ish. This one, no, it's pure like mellow death metal. So even though it's scary at times, at least there's like violins and shit to it. Anyway, the song is called On the Topmost Step of the Earth, and again, it's just another song about how cool like space and like travel is. This is another song where the lyrics are a little on the fake side, and I should have looked back at the lyrics and really thought about what they meant, but there's a part in the lyrics sung by the Clean vocalists, Sotiris Fayenitz, about like the infinite joys of journey or some stuff. And to me, infinite joy kind of really summarizes the experience of space travel, at least on a Sunbeam. Like, a lot of the emotions in it can at times be like very just raw and, at very times uncomfortable, because these characters are dealing with their very uncomfortable past. But as soon as they jump into their freaky koi fish ships and, blast off into the stars, you get a full feel of how much they're enjoying flying around in there.
Yeah.
And for me, On the Topmost Step of the Earth captures that magic. And I wish I had something more to say, but it's late and I'm running out of cognitive.
Well, okay, so my final pick, I just went for the big, like, kind of cheesy, like, over the top, Stand By Me but the Florence and the Machine cover that was released for Final Fantasy 15. If anyone who's listening to this podcast follows me on Twitter, you know that that's the only thing I can talk about is Final Fantasy.
Well, that and Naruto.
Yeah, that and Naruto, both of which have consumed most of my life this year. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I think the ending of this comic, again, I don't want to spoil it, but it was just so like good and like well wrapped up and stuff, and I wanted a song that like kind of captured everything that all the characters went through, and as much as it is about like cool space travel, like it's also about being there for your friends, and like those, you do anything for your friends, and that is in this case like Final Fantasy 15 is like about the broest road trip ever. And so I think this particular recording is like that, like kind of captures that. And then I was just like, well, it works for this comic, and I love this song, and it's a great version.
Right.
So yeah.
Well.
One of the big themes. So.
Yeah. Well, I actually, this is one of the first songs that you love that I listened to before we started this podcast, because I think you tweeted about it, and all I needed to see was Florence Welch. And I'm like, yes, I'm all about the Florence Welch.
Yeah. We share a birthday, actually, Florence and I.
Nice!
Yeah. We recently celebrated at the end of August.
Nice. But yeah, Florence Welch is in my opinion, most non-metal singer
She's so
in pop
cool.
music. Like, she just has that vocal range I look for in a singer. Like,
yeah, and she
body
looks like she lives in like a fairy house in the woods, which is just like, that's the goal right there.
That's so folk metal too.
Yeah.
But I listened to it and I was impressed. Like, I know Stand By Me, the song, because look, if you've watched Stand By Me, the movie, you've heard Stand By Me.
If you existed in the world, I'm sure you've heard Stand By Me.
At some point in any incarnation, but because it's Florence Welch, she has just her vocals, which are just epic. And every time I listen to her, while she's singing, she's achieving that galaxy brain meme.
Yeah,
that everyone loves.
You have to love her, I feel like. She actually did like 3 songs for that game. Not to get too off topic, but like they're all very good.
Really?
Yeah, it was that one, and then I think a couple other original songs for the game, which is just so weird.
I wonder if Florence Welch...
I could do a whole podcast about how weird Final Fantasy 15 is, but I will leave that for another day.
You should. I wonder if Florence Welch is actually a giant nerd, which is why she decided to do that. Because...
We should start our own true crime investigation podcast and find out.
Oh, Maddi, we could do an entire Are These Musicians Nerds podcast just based on black metal. Because I assure you, they all have a boner for, like, Tolkien and Robert E. Howard and, like, H.P. Lovecraft. They're just not willing to admit it because it's not Satanist enough or some shit. But when I listen to it, I feel that same way, that it's such a simple song to cover, too.
Yeah.
But...
She did so much with it, too. It's just...
Yeah.
It's
but...
such a good version.
The good thing about a simple song to cover is that you can add layers to it from the original, which Florence Welch does with her operatic singing and her kind of like, very kind of like combination of classical music and kind of a little bit of arena rock, but also a little bit of like gothic music and a little bit of like even some elements of like electronic music in there. Mm-hmm. And it all comes out in this wonderful mix that you might not even be able to explain it at first, but it works. Which is kind of like how I associate her as the most metal, non-metal singer out there, because a lot of the metal bands I listen to also pull that off. Just like putting together elements that you would not think come together at all, and they shouldn't, but damn if they don't make it happen. Yeah. But in this case, I have to totally agree with you on Stand By Me, because with On a Sunbeam, that's really, I would say, the theme of the book is Stand By Me.
A beautiful story of friendship and space travel.
Yes, it is. And that song perfectly captures it. And, well, if you've listened to Stand By Me, you know the lyrics. It's like, No matter, what goes through, no matter how, low the sun goes or how long the night is, you'll stand by me because we're best friends forever. And I'm saying that all in a very kind of, condescending tone, but just so everyone knows, I'm not being condescending to it. I'm just saying that as simple as that message is, it's profound in that simplicity because at all points in our lives, we have those friendships. Even sometimes if, they end up, going south and we can only remember the good parts from nostalgia, where you remember that moment where you all knew you were going to stand by each other somehow. And this can even happen later, making friends as an adult. I can say that I've made a lot more friends that way as an adult with that message of stand by me through the darkest of times when all seems hopeless and stuff. At least we have each other, and that's the power of On the Sunbeam, is that it is about these group of women and one non-binary person, I should say that. So, any of our trans or NB listeners out there is a non-cis character there, and they're pretty awesome. They're like a kung fu master, martial artist shit thing.
I think Elliot was my favorite character.
Same, and they were the character that I'm not gonna give away. They talk a little bit near the end, but through all that time they were silent. They were had the most profound body language in it, where you knew what they were communicating for that. But anyway, as much as I wish I got to talk about the more complex stuff, and I guess in the association I had with my song choices with On the Sunbeam, but at least with Stand By Me, it's probably the best choice. I should say you made it. I feel like I'm talking over you a little bit.
Oh, no, it's okay. All of my song choices, I think this time were relatively simple. They were all songs. I didn't really have to, actively seek songs out because I knew them all. But I think, and you kind of, got at this a little bit, but I think the story itself is very simple in that the major theme is, just standing by and trusting your friends, and it just very beautifully portrayed that relationships between friends and between significant others or partners or whatever. I think the story itself is very simple, but just so well done that it's a very good read, and I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, you don't need to make an over explanation of it.
Yeah, and it's all available for free at onasunbeam.com.
Although there is that print version coming out, so I do pick that up.
Coming out in October.
Yeah.
Which I'll probably be buying because I really loved it. So.
I will too, and I'm gonna dedicate an entire space in my overpopulated bookshelf just to Tillie Walden at this point. She's the future of comics we need.
Yeah, so if we haven't convinced you to check it out, then I think we've failed ourselves and also Tillie. But
yeah, sorry Tillie. Sorry Tillie. We're bad podcasters. Sorry. But if you hear this and love this, not to brag too much, but we would love to have you on the show. If that ever happens, I'll die of happiness.
Yeah, we'd have to do spinning next, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I'm down for that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm out of things to say, for once actually, but.
So am I, and I'm the one that talks too much between us. Yeah. So, On a Sunbeam, when you read it, you might not have a lot of complex things to say about it, but you don't need to same thing with our song choices. We didn't have a lot of complex things to say about our song choices, but they felt right. And at the end of the day, that emotional connection of, like, it feels great and internal, and profound without having to overanalyze it is not just a point of art or even friendship or love, but life itself. And I think On the Sunbeam captures that, and our song choices hopefully captured that as well.
Yeah. I think there's something there for really everyone to relate to, whether you're young adult or adult. Like,
absolutely.
Infinitely relatable, so hopefully our song choices reflect that.
Yep. All right, well, I think that's all we have for tonight. We'll try, I have no idea if we're ever going to have a regular, schedule. It seems like, considering how busy our lives are, we're just going to do this shit when we have time to do it. But I hope that each time me and Maddi can entertain you guys. All two of you. Brett and I guess also Jill. Because they're the people that publish our stuff. What was that?
Wonderful. I said shout out to both of them. They've been wonderful in helping us.
They really have.
Podcasting ways.
They have.
Yeah. Ben, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me mostly on Twitter right now. I also have some articles on The Outhousers, on Graphic Policy, on Loser City. I have not been active in those three places recently, but I've been most active over at Under the Ink. So if you want to find me see some of my most recent stuff, check me out at Under the Ink.
And I have been as I've said, I have been playing a lot of Final Fantasy this year, so I've been mostly writing for SideQuest, which is sidequest.zone. And I'm also on Twitter, tweeting about also video games and Naruto, as aforementioned, at Madison R. Butler. So find me there. I'm sure I'll be talking about one of those two subjects.
I wonder if our next podcast series should just be about Naruto.
We could debate the best Naruto openings. I am 100% down for that.
I am for the first season one, where it's like the kind of 80s rock album. That
is the best Naruto opening. And
so,
I knows it because I just pointed my finger at the webcam. I'm very serious about it. Rocks by Hound Dog. Look it up. You'll never listen to another song again. Just kidding, people. But
can we at least both agree that Sakura is the backbone of Team 7?
She is, and that is why I have a Nendoroid of her on my desk at work.
I remember that image of Wonder Woman carrying Batman and Superman around that comic book nerds have. That's Sakura. She would be Wonder Woman carrying Naruto and Sasuke around.
Yeah, I hate Sasuke. Sorry. Okay, I've talked about Naruto too much. But thank you for joining us, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
Same here. So, peace out.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.